So it's all right to have a little bit of fun in church, right? Okay, because that was it. We're done with the fun today, okay? So, all right. John chapter 6. We're going to look at miracle number 5, and this is the miracle that happens on the water. It's Jesus walking on the water. John chapter 6, verses 16 through 21. And as we're going through this series, Miraculous Joy, really it's the idea that, Jesus performed some miracles, and John, in his gospel, only really focused on 7 of those miracles. And so we've kind of been weaving our way through those miracles, but with the idea that each of those miracles was in some way to bring kind of a sense of not just the miracle, but a sense of miraculous joy into our lives and the lives of the others that we might take this out to. So Luke 2:10, which we're going to get to eventually in this series, says, "But the angel reassured them the night that Jesus was born. 'Don't be afraid,' he said. 'I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people.'" So what we're talking about missionally is to take joy around the world, right? But we're talking about also experiencing that joy in this time of the season where we're focusing on Christ and Him coming for us and to us. So I know that oftentimes during the Christmas season, it's not necessarily a season of hope and joy for a lot of people. And a lot of families are going through some different things. There's a lot of heartache and hurt and those kinds of things. So I'm praying today that even through this series that joy will infect you through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. So here's the question today. How many of you have maybe seen God do something like miraculous in your life, and then within a few hours or a few days or maybe a week later, you were wondering where God was now, right? Like God just did this awesome miracle, like feeding a large amount of people, and just within the end of that day, by the time night comes, the disciples had just had the best day ever with Jesus, right? Where are we going to get enough food? Where are we going to get enough food to feed all these people? Jesus asked them. They said, well, there's no way we can feed all these people. He's like, right, I'm the way. Okay, so boom, little boy, lunch, barley loaves, fish. They take it, multiply it, and everyone is full, and there's baskets left over, right? So all this stuff, the disciples have seen this. The people look at him and they say, this is the one we've been expecting. He's done this kind of thing. He's doing these kinds of miracles. We want Jesus. So they try to force him into this. And the disciples were part of that. And they were like, man, and then Jesus is gone. He disappears. That evening. This is the next miracle. Starts with that evening. It's kind of this idea that, okay, Jesus, you left no doubt that you were the Son of God. You left no doubt that you're the miracle worker. You left no doubt. But that was earlier today. Where are you now? Where are you now? You did that miracle yesterday. You did that miracle a couple years ago. You did that miracle in my life over here. But what about now? John chapter 6 says in verse 14, when the people saw him do this miraculous sign, they exclaimed, surely he is the prophet we have been expecting. When Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away into the hills by himself. And this is where we pick it up in John chapter 6, verse 16. That evening, Jesus' disciples went down to the shore to wait for him. But as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back, they got into the boat and headed across the lake toward Capernaum. Soon a gale swept down upon them, and the sea grew very rough. They had rowed 3 or 4 miles when suddenly they saw Jesus walking on the water toward the boat. They were terrified, but he called out to them, "Don't be afraid, I am here." Then they were eager to let him in the boat, and immediately they arrived at their destination. And this is the shortest version of this miracle. John has it in his gospel. Matthew and Mark put it in their gospels. And this week, if you do the study guide, you're going to read through all of those accounts. But Matthew and Mark give a little bit more details of the miracle itself and add some other things. But they seem to focus on the perspective of the disciples that were being involved and engaged in the miracle, and how they reacted to it. where John, his whole gospel is about the whole idea that Jesus is God. And so he focuses on Jesus in this. So it's not so many details outside. Now, I'm going to actually use some of the details from Matthew and Mark in the message today, but this is kind of the shortest version of it. So, as you're working through that this week, you're going to see some of the other details. Just a quick note about the Sea of Galilee. So when we think of Sea of Galilee, it sounds like a huge sea. When we think of the word sea, it's like huge, right? But this is really a lake. It's the Lake of Galilee, if you want to think about it that way. It's about 650 feet below sea level. It's 150 feet deep at its deepest point. It's approximately about 7 miles wide and about 17 miles long. It's actually about the size of Lake Almanor, where my wife and I got to be up there for 5 years. But that lake was up in the mountains, not down below sea level. She probably would have liked that better, that level. But because of the way it was situated, though, and I've been there, so it's kind of a bowl. There's mountains all around it and hills around it, and it's like this bowl. So it's like the wind comes sweeping through there, and windstorms and big waves can rise up immediately, okay? So that's kind of what happens here. But out of this, as we're reading through this, and I was studying through it, I was thinking, man, there's really some things, kind of some main statements that Jesus is making to us from this miracle. And so I'm going to kind of call this, kind of a subpoint of this is that these are the 3 statements from Jesus that change my chaos into his miraculous. So we're going to go through what I'm calling 3 statements. He didn't make the statements during this, but this is kind of what I'm hearing out of it, okay? And then I'm going to give you an added bonus at the end, just for showing up today, all right? So here we go. Number 1, the first statement that I really want us to grab is this: I know where you are, and I see your struggle. I want you to hear Jesus saying that to you today out of this passage, in this miracle. He's saying, I know where you are, and I see your struggle. It says in John 6:19, they had rowed 3 or 4 miles when suddenly they saw Jesus walking on the water toward the boat. Mark's version says he saw that they were in serious trouble, rowing hard and struggling against the wind and waves. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on the water. And actually Mark says he intended to go by them. So why are they in this situation? As we're thinking about the statement, I know where you are and I see your struggle. Why were they in this situation? Well, if you look at the other accounts again, you basically see that Jesus told them to get into the boat and go across to the other side of the lake. And then he went up to the hill and was praying. So Jesus, there's so many great things in here, but he had given them instructions to get in the boat and go across to the other side. And he basically said, I'll meet you over there. And John's version says they waited around, right? You see that? They're like waited. He told them, get in the boat, go to the other side, I'll meet you over there. And then he went up on the hill to pray, and they waited around for him. And they're waiting for him. And it says, he didn't show up. They're wondering where he is. They're in the situation that they got into because they didn't follow his instructions, right? So they waited until it got late, and then they got in the boat and said, well, I guess Jesus isn't going to show up. Let's go ahead and get in the boat and go across without him. And because they waited longer than they were supposed to, maybe, the storm came. Maybe they would have missed the storm if they would have just followed the instructions. I know none of us have ever done that, so let's not go farther into that. But they had rowed 3 or 4 miles. Okay, how wide is the lake? 7 miles wide. So at the widest point, so they had rowed 3 or 4 miles halfway through the storm, the wind and the waves. They're exhausted. They're yelling at each other. There's probably some tears, right? And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. How long does it take fishermen to row across a lake? Well, it took them a long time, right? And they're exhausted. Now, the disciples had just seen Jesus feed about 20,000 people. but they quickly lost their lunch during this little storm on the sea. You see, it's a daily battle for us to stay fixed on Jesus, isn't it? It's a daily battle to stay focused on who he is and what he does. Oswald Chambers, one of my favorites, of course, says, crises reveal character. When we are put to the test, the hidden resources of our character are revealed exactly. You know, we've talked about this all the time, you know. When you squeeze a lemon, what comes out? Sour juice. Squeezing the lemon doesn't make it sour. So when we go through something and life squeezes us, the character that comes out is what's in there. It's already there, okay? So quit blaming someone else or something else for the way you are. But how about leaning into what Jesus wants to do to change that character into who he wants you to be? And so, man, they're going through this storm, right? And what's Jesus doing? He's praying. But there's one other thing he's doing. He's watching. He's got night vision. Oh, look at those guys. He saw them straining at the oars, it says. He watched them. And what is he doing? He's praying for them. We're going to talk about that in a second, okay? But he's watching them. He's praying for them. They could have turned around. So they're rowing against the wind. Doesn't that mean like turn around and go with the wind? But one thing they didn't do, this is where they listened to Jesus, they kept going against the wind. Why? Because Jesus told them to go across. Listen, following the instructions of Jesus does not make your life easier. Some of you are falling for some false doctrine about that. Like that if you'll give your life to Jesus and you'll just do what Jesus said, your life will become so much easier. How many of you know for a fact that's not true? Okay, if you don't know, just look at the hands, talk to these people after the service, okay? So I'm going to tell you, if you give your life to Jesus, that's the best thing you'll ever do, okay? I'm not saying don't do that, but it doesn't mean that your life's going to get easy. You're going to go with the word of Jesus against the wind in your life, okay? So it's always a struggle. There's a struggle. Don't be afraid of the struggle. Don't get exhausted in the struggle. When you do, know that Jesus is there. He's watching you. He's saying, I know where you are, and I see your struggle. They're out in the middle of the lake. They're nowhere near the shore, but they're ready for a miracle to happen. Someone said, one doesn't discover new lands without consenting to lose sight of the shore for a very long time. I just want you to latch onto the statement today. I know where you are, and I see your struggle, and I'm praying for you. I want you to remember that one of the names of God is Jehovah Roy, which means the God who sees. I see you. I see you. The second statement I want you to latch on to today, not only is that I know where you are and I see your struggle, but praying is more powerful than rowing. Second statement, listen to Jesus telling you today, praying is more powerful than rowing. They'd been out waiting for him. He didn't come, so they got in the boat, headed across the lake. Jesus is up there praying for him. He's watching him. One of the things you learn in your study of the life of Jesus is he was a man of prayer, right? Man of prayer. He prays for you. He prayed for me. He prays for us. He prayed for the disciples. He prayed to the Father. He was a man of prayer. He oftentimes left the disciples to be alone with the Father early in the morning, before daybreak. He oftentimes went at night to pray to the Father, maybe all night praying. Before he called out the disciples, said he was all night praying. He prayed, he told them how to pray. Pray not like the Pharisees, hypocritically, but authentically. He said to pray purposefully, not just babbling on. He said to pray not publicly to gain an audience, but privately before the audience of one. He said, keep asking, seeking, knocking. He had taught them the basics about prayer, and now he was going to teach them at the next level. And it's this: praying is more powerful than rowing. Now, they're out in the middle of the lake. They've been rowing for a long time. They've been working together, going through all this. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. They've been rowing, struggling. They're exhausted, and they see Jesus walking across the water. You know how fast you'd have to walk across the water in order to stay on top of the water as a human being? 67 miles an hour. Now, the fastest human being right now is probably Usain Bolt, and I think they clocked him at about 27 miles an hour. That's pretty fast, right? It's not fast enough, though, to not sink. But they see Jesus coming out, walking now. So I'm just thinking about this. Is there a connection between spending more time that he was spending time in prayer and watching and really seeking God while they're out there rowing and getting nowhere? Is there a connection between maybe sometimes we should pray more and work less? I'm not saying don't work. I'm not saying don't do what you need to do. I'm not saying don't do the things that God's called you to do. But how about if we start praying more and seeing more results, because that's what God's doing, not us, right? And I know that God can do in a minute what it takes me years to accomplish, right? So maybe there's this connection between, hey, guys, I want you to see this right here, that praying is more powerful than rowing. Sometimes we get so focused on the ocean of problems around us, and we're starting to just kind of keep rowing. And I know, I should probably pray about this more, but I think I can fix this. I think I got this, so I'm going to keep rowing. I think I got this. Yeah, it's pretty tough, but I think I got this. And I know prayer is not the last resort. It's my first response. I know that. But you know how I know that? I know that here, and I know that here, but practically sometimes I act like I don't know that. That I'm so focused on me doing this work and trying to steer the ship and paddle away and keep those oars going. And many times I just need to stop focusing on me and what I'm trying to accomplish and simply pray. So often in leadership, we're rowing hard to accomplish all kinds of things for God and wondering why it's so hard. But we got to keep this going. We got to keep it rowing. We got to keep moving forward. Maybe this is a lesson for me and for you and for all of us, that the power of God is what we need, not our performance. So we sang, His presence, your presence is what we need. Praying is more powerful than rowing. Listen, I'm not telling those of you that think that all you need to do is pray and do nothing. I'm not saying keep that up. I'm saying pray and then do what Jesus tells you to do. You got to do what Jesus is telling you to do, okay? Some of you need to quit praying about it and just do it. If you come to me and say, hey, Pastor Ken, can you do this, this, and this? If I say to you, well, let me pray about that. I'm going to tell you what that means, because it means the same thing to you. No, I don't want to do that, but I don't want to tell you that. So I'm going to pray about it. Hey, we need you to serve in this area. You know what, Pastor Ken, let me pray about that. I've already prayed for you, okay? I've already prayed that prayer for you. God told me to ask you to do it. You don't need to pray about it. Yeah, I'm going to pray about it. Let me pray about that. Pastor Ken, we're having trouble in our marriage. What should we do? Do this. Well, we're going to pray about that. Don't pray about that. Just do it, right? Pastor Ken, I was thinking about giving, and I was thinking about maybe getting involved in the missions offering. I was thinking about it, but I'm praying about it. Quit praying about that. Just do it, right? You don't need to pray about the things that Jesus has already told you to do. And so sometimes I'm like, yeah, when you come to me and you say, hey, Pastor Ken, I love you. I mean, God loves you, and I have a perfect will for your life. I get that part, I know that part of it. But it's like, man, what about this? And I'm like, well, let me pray about that. You could probably just hear me saying, yeah, I don't think so. But anyways, so I'm not saying that you should stop working while you're praying, okay? I'm not saying that at all. But sometimes you get so caught up like me in the work that we forget that it's more productive in prayer than in the rowing. But let's get to that third statement. The third statement is this: your biggest fear will make it clear who I am. This is Jesus talking to you. Your biggest fear will make it clear who I am. It says they were terrified. They see him, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, they see him walking across the water, and they're terrified. Mark says he was intended to go by them. Why was he intending to go by them? They're in the storm. He's been watching them. He's been praying for them. And he's like, hey, guys. No, he was like focused on getting to the other side. He said, I'll meet you over there. How did they think he was going to get over there? Well, they didn't know. They didn't think he was going to walk across the water, though. I guarantee you that. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. They're exhausted. They've been rowing. They're yelling at each other. It's just chaos, right? And they look up and they see someone walking on the water toward the boat. And it says they are terrified. They thought it was a ghost. Why? Because they had never seen this. It didn't register with them. When things happen in our mind that we've never imagined, we spin into chaos. We're terrified. Have you ever seen like one of these magicians or illusionists on TV or in YouTube or whatever, and they're doing these crazy things, and it's like, how did they do that? And the response of the people sometimes is, oh, get away from me, right? I'm like, that is satanic. I can't explain it, so it's satanic. It's like my mind can't register that. These guys were terrified. They see a person on the water. I'm pretty sure he wasn't doing 67 miles an hour, but he was walking on the water, and they're terrified. And he says to them, fear not. Fear not. 2 words that mean this: stop being afraid. Stop being afraid. It's the most repeated negative command in the Bible, fear not. Why is it the most often repeated command in the Bible? Because we need to hear it more and more. We need to hear it a lot. Don't be afraid. And he's saying, it's not the idea that, hey, don't be afraid, little girly men. Don't be a chicken. What's wrong with you? He's not saying don't ever feel fear. Because God created us with emotions, and fear is one of those. It can actually be very helpful, okay? So in this case, it wasn't. So in that case, he's saying stop being afraid. So he's not saying don't feel fear. Don't try to get rid of the feeling of fear. He's saying stop being afraid. So here's what I want you to think about. Isn't it, what are you afraid of? Now, I'm not asking you, are you afraid of spiders or heights or public speaking? I'm asking, what are you allowing in your life right now that you're afraid of doing something or stepping out or stepping in, whatever that is, you're letting fear dictate how you're going to live your life. The fear's going to be there. The way to conquer that is feel the fear and do it anyways. Stop being afraid. Isn't it amazing to me? We live in the most safety-first historical moment, I think, in history. Like, safety first. We're so safe about everything. Yet, I feel like we're more fearful than any other generation. Like, we have all these things, we're afraid to go anywhere unsafe. We're afraid to eat anything unsafe. We have safety equipment. We have helmets. We have goggles. We have pads. We have nets. We have airbags. We have floaties. We have rules. We have policies. We have insurance. We have all this stuff that goes on. And I'm not against that stuff. I'm just saying, it seems to me that because we have all that we should be the most daring Christians throughout history. And yet, over and over, the thing that we seem to latch onto most is quit being afraid. Isn't that weird? Like, you listen to the radio this week, Christian radio. If you listen to Christian radio, if you don't, there's something wrong with you. No, if you don't, try it. It might help you, okay? I think it will. But if you're listening to Christian radio, listen to the songs. See how many songs that you listen to during the week talk about don't be afraid. And I love those songs. Why? Because I need to hear that. Don't let fear rule in your heart and life. I mean, it's not saying don't ever feel fear, but stop letting fear dictate that. Now, how do we do that, though? Because here's the other part of it. Jesus said, stop being afraid. I am here. This is the other part of the equation. I am here. So he's not just saying, look, man up, don't be a baby, quit crying, don't be afraid. He's saying, in the midst of that, you can stop being afraid because I am here. Now, it's in the original language, that is only 2 words. A lot of translations have it, I am here, or I am he, that kind of translation. It's only 2 words, ego, eimi, and it means I am. Jesus actually uses the word that is from Exodus, where God said to Moses, tell them I am that I am. He's saying, I am. God is here with you. And if we want to get over the fear of things, we don't need to psych ourselves up. We need to open our eyes to who Jesus is. That's what it's saying. It's, clear up. Who is Jesus? It's not I need to be tougher. It's I need to see better who Jesus is. Because if I see Jesus, then why would I be afraid? Right? When I see Jesus, why am I afraid? Because Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. He said, I'm the bread of life. He said, I'm the gate. He said, I'm the good shepherd. I'm the resurrection and the life. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He said, I'm the vine. He said, I'm the God of the Old Testament. I'm the God of the New Testament. He said, I'm the creator of the universe, and I created you. He said, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I'm the beginning and the end. I am the God, and with me, you don't need to be afraid. That's what he's saying. Stop being afraid. And it says, once they recognized that cleared up for them, it says they were eager for him to get in the boat, right? Oh, man, you're going through that fear thing in your life right now, and all of a sudden you see Jesus, man, you are eager for him to get in the boat because you don't want to be afraid, and you want to do, and you want to get to where he wants you to go, right? So they were eager. Listen, Jesus came to them, and he came for us. He came and died on the cross so that we could have life eternal with him. He came for us. I want you to picture him walking to you and saying, I am. I am. I am. Stop being afraid. I am. I'm right here with you. And I'm not only the God who sees, but I am the God who is present with you. It says they immediately arrived at their destination. I'm not sure what that means because they were in the middle of the lake and then Jesus gets in the boat and it says they were immediately at their destination. I'm thinking there was a massive wake behind that boat. I'm not sure. Some commentators think that it was just John's way of saying that with Jesus in the boat, there were no more wind against them and waves, so they reached their destination, which seemed quicker. Nah, I don't think so. I think it was just like, boom, we're there. You see, when you have Jesus in the boat with you, you're going the way he wants you to go, and you arrive where he wants you to be. But you don't need to be afraid. So maybe it's time for you to hear Jesus saying, I know where you are. I see where you're struggling. Praying is more powerful than rowing. But your fear, your biggest fear right now, let that bring clarity to who I am in your life. Now, here's the added bonus. You guys are thinking, oh, good, here's the bonus. This is the free part, okay? Going overboard may be your best option. Going overboard may be your best option. We cannot skip that Matthew brings into this miracle that Peter, one of the disciples, actually walked on water too. I can't skip that, right? You guys wouldn't want me to skip that, would you? You're like, well, what time is it? Okay, so... And I'm thinking, why didn't John include that part? Why didn't John include that part? That Peter walked on water. You know why? John's like, Peter. I told you I was faster than Peter, right? Peter's like, yeah, but I walked on the water, dude. Yeah, so John doesn't include that. Matthew does. He puts it in there. And it kind of fits into where they recognize Jesus, right? And then it's in John's version, he gets in the boat. In Matthew's version, they see that, and it says, Peter called out to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. Jesus, yes, come. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. You have so little faith, he said. Why did you doubt me? When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshiped him. You really are the Son of God. Wow. Listen, first of all, I got something this week in this. Jesus didn't tell Peter to get out of the boat. Right? It's not like they saw him, oh, it's Jesus. And Jesus yells, Peter, jump out of the boat. You want to have faith in me? You guys want to have real good faith? Jump out of that boat. Come walking over here. No, Jesus didn't tell Peter to jump out of the boat. Peter did, right? Peter's like, Lord, if that's you, tell me to come out there. And Jesus is like, what? No, he's like, he was like, I love this. This guy wants to come out to be with me on the water, in the wind, in the waves. He'd rather be out here with me than in the boat with a bunch of scaredy cat knucklehead disciples. Like, yes, it's me. I told you it's me. Come out, Peter. And he's like, okay, let's go. He gets out there, and he didn't get far. He got farther than you did, though, didn't he? Right? Man, what are the other disciples in the boat thinking? Peter. What an idiot, okay? Right? And I told you. I knew it. I knew it wouldn't work. I knew it wouldn't work. But what does Jesus think about Peter? Oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. Like, you get that. Like, you're going to jump out of that boat. You're going to step out of the boat into the water. You're going to come toward me. And he steps out, and he's going. And it says he looks around. What did he do? He took his eyes off of Jesus, and he looked around. He felt the wind. He saw the waves. Now, these weren't little waves. They were big waves, okay? And he sees all this, and he feels all this, and he looks around, and he begins to sink. And the disciples are like, I knew it. And he said 2 words, save me. And Jesus reaches out his hand and grabs Peter and lifts him up and said, why did you doubt me? Now, you might hear Jesus say, why did you doubt me? What is wrong with you? I fed 5,000 people. What are you doing? Why do you always doubt me? What am I going to have to do with you? Peter, bam. Get back in the water. Try it again. Not Jesus. He doesn't do that to you either. You go overboard, you step out, and you take a step of faith, and you fail. It's okay. Jesus is right there with you. I said, I am here. I am here. I am with you. You may fail, but it's okay. You tried. You stepped out. You believed in me. You did something no one else has ever or will ever do. Peter, that's awesome. Picks him up. And he says, why did you doubt me? Let's get back in the boat. Now what do you think the other disciples are thinking? Well, I would have done that too, but What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? I want you to hear Jesus calling you out right now from where you are, calling you out and say, man, you've been there. You're in the boat. That's cool. You're maybe heading in the right direction. But hey, what if you did something else? What if you tried something? What if you went overboard a little bit? What would that look like for you? What are you afraid of? You're going to fail? I know I am. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I don't want to fail. I'm afraid of failing. And what I need to hear Jesus tell me today is, hey, I'm with you. You failed. That's why I came. I'm going to change that failure into salvation. I was having coffee with my buddy Steve Gower. Steve Gower is a member of the church here, and he's a science teacher at Troy High School. And he's one of my accountability partners. We try to get together each week, but like yesterday, I overslept, so I had to do the text of shame. Okay, so anyways, I was meeting with Steve the other day, and he, as a science teacher, and I don't get all this, I'm not a science guy, okay, but he was talking to me about what he was calling a supersaturated solution. And a supersaturated solution is, picture a solid element that when it's heated up, it becomes liquid like water, okay? So it's heated up and it becomes liquefied, and then you take this supersaturated solution, which is in its liquid state at that point, and he says if you take like one little piece of crystal and you drop it in that, like a crystal into that liquid, all of that solution begins to form, like grab onto that little crystal and become solid again. And within minutes, that whole thing is solid again because of that one little crystal that was dropped into the liquid. Not only is it's liquid, but it becomes unstable. And so when that crystal is dropped into it, it all like rallies around that, like grabs onto that. Here's what I'm saying today. Because this is what I said to Steve. I said, that's like our faith, right? That's like faith. When we go through tough times, when we're going through the fire, our faith becomes like liquid state and we become unstable. And then God drops a piece of truth right in the middle of that and we grab onto that. It's like, woo! Man, we had revival in Starbucks. We were like, it was awesome. I was just thinking, man, this is amazing. But I was thinking about this. Picture this. Peter steps out of the boat into the water. And he begins to sink. And he says, Lord, save me. And he reaches up, and Jesus grabs his hand. That right there pulls him up, solidifies his faith, puts him back in the boat. I want you to take these 3 statements today from Jesus to you, and I want you to grab onto them. Jesus saying to you, I know where you are. I see your struggle. I'm praying for you. I came for you. I'm here for you. And I want you to know, let your biggest fear make it clear who I am. I'm the God who rescues you. I'm the God who saves you. I'm the God who sees you. I want you to bow your head and close your eyes. Maybe you're here today and you're walking through just a turbulent sea of things right now. Maybe you're wondering how you're going to get through this. Well, maybe this is the breakthrough point. We just sang about it. I'm not going to stop. God's going to come through on his promise to us. He started the work. He's going to complete it. But maybe you're like in the middle of that. You're walking through that right now. And you say, Lord, I need you. I need you to come into my life. I need you to take over. Lord, I've never invited you to come into my life to be my Lord and Savior. I've never given my life to you, and I don't even really know what all that means and how to do that. I just know that I need you to come and save me. Maybe you're here today and you're a believer, you're a follower of Jesus, and you know that he is calling you into something deeper with him, with ministry, with giving, with whatever that is, that Jesus is calling you into something deeper. But maybe you're here and you're just saying, God, I want to do what you want me to do. And he loves that. So we're going to have this time of response. And the band's going to do the song Oceans. And as you hear this song and God gets a hold of your heart and you grab onto the truth, I just want you to respond to that. We'll have people up here to pray with you. You can come up here and pray by yourself. It does however you want that. But God, I pray that you would do what only you can do in our hearts, in our minds, in our lives today. In Jesus' powerful name.